So why don't we start off with introduction? So my name is Greg Sharp. I'm from ZenContract, based in Auckland, New Zealand. Speak with a funny accent, and we're going to get two wildly different accents here today. And yourself, Dustin?
Yeah, so Dustin Puryear, Giant Rocketship. I live in the south of the U.S., Louisiana, and we're based out of New Orleans. So definitely going to have different accents.
Yeah, good. Great town, New Orleans, isn't it? I mean, I've only had alcohol poisoning twice. One of them, one time was there, so it is. It's an amazing party town, but man, it was a lot of fun.
Yes, beautiful. It's got great architecture. It's got its issues like all decent sized cities, but definitely is a beautiful location.
Yeah, very good. And so, what we're going to go through today, and a little bit of interview style, but I mean, we've both got MSP backgrounds, and decided that we wanted to bring something to the industry, and they're in very very different areas. So that we're going to explore those today. So why don't we start off with, right from the beginning, how did you get into technology, your road into being an MSP, and then the evolution of your product. So not that we want to go 15 minutes or 20, to keep it concise, but let's take us down that journey.
Yeah, just like everybody else, it was kind of a meandering, winding road. I was definitely a little bit of a geek in high school. I went into college and I'd already started writing software. I was a developer. And actually, during college, I started a software company. This is back when you would write system libraries and you would sell the libraries to other developers. And so that was a horrible mess. But that was my first company, my first bankruptcy. Well, I guess not bankruptcy, my first closed company, non-profitable company. And went through college, um, came out being a developer. That was the dot-com era. And it was fun. I wrote a couple of books at the time. I was in a lot of magazines. I learned I had a knack for writing. And then I started doing speaking. I was really deep into Unix, Linux, and identity access management. And so I got on a couple of speaking circuits for Microsoft and others. And so instantly, I had some credibility. I was doing consulting. It was fun. Um, but then I realized, wait, I can't really scale this because at least where I'm at in South Louisiana, it was hard to find people that knew how to do identity access management for a 30,000 person organization. So I kind of shifted over a couple of years, um, kind of a specialty boutique service firm into an MSP, much easier to hire in that environment. Ran that for many years. And during my tenure there, I kind of started writing other software, and that's how I landed here at Giant Rocketship, which is a completely different business and a new business.
And so what size was the MSP? And do you still have it, or did you sell it, or?
So I don't have it. It's actually winding down as we speak. I kept it in parallel for a while, but it is impossible to run more than one company for me. Um, I forget where this comes from, but I think it's a biblical reference. But basically, it says a man can only serve one master. And so it's very difficult running multiple companies unless you have the infrastructure for it. So we're winding that down. And all of my time for the past several months has been with Giant Rocketship.
Okay, I think that reference is a Disney reference that actually comes from Alibaba.
Well, I do think it's a biblical reference, but it may
You're
also
right.
be in a.
Maybe it was popularized to me through Disney. Maybe that's a lot more applicable as to
Well,
my
it's
level of
funny. I mess
knowledge.
with my wife, who's all into Star Wars and everything, and then I'll joke about these movies, and I'll say, "Hey, I heard they like let's talk about Dune just came out." I'm like, "Hey, I heard they wrote a book about that movie, and it drives her crazy." So
Yeah, that's a good way to wind her up. And so what is not that we're going into the pitch competition, we're both
mhm.
in this pitch it thing with ConnectWise, but what does Giant Rocketship do
Well,
for
first,
the MSP?
in regards to the pitch at competition, just keep in mind we're going to destroy you, and I don't think you're going to make it out of that competition alive. But that being, beside the point. So what was your question before I went on a tangent there?
What does Giant Rocketship do for the MSP?
Absolutely. So just think of if an MSP owner is looking at their own MSP, they're going to look at their service manager, their service coordinator, and what they're going to find is those people are constantly just juggling technicians, tickets, and time. That's all they do. They're just constantly juggling these things. So Rocketship uses AI to ensure tickets get to the right technician. technicians are working the right ticket, and they're working the ticket at the right time. And so it's a full-time, fully automated coordinator that is always keeping your technicians fully at capacity and pushing tickets to the right people at the right time. So the people are always working the best ticket at the best time.
So that must have a significant effect to the operational efficiency of the service desk or of that group of people, right?
It does. In fact, when you look at a lot of our the comments we get on Google and other places where people are talking about Rocketship, the thing they say is it's really just been a game changer because work that they thought they would never be able to get to, suddenly they have time for because they're not just constantly scrambling trying to find a tech that can work the ticket. So it does change things.
It's going to free up a whole lot of time from either one, two, or three people, depending on the size of the service desk. Having run one of those for many years, then there's a lot of wastage that goes to actually going and logging into the system and grabbing the ticket and assigning it to a person and then calling out over to the water cooler, hey, can you take this ticket? And all that stuff really adds up when you're doing thousands of tickets per month. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
absolutely. And God help us if somebody needs to escalate a ticket to another tier. That just adds a whole nother layer of complexity to looking to see who's the best person, who's the engineer that's available for this type of job. And so yeah, that's where Rocketship shines is it steps in and does it, and it does it within 1 to 2 seconds.
And I'm guessing integrations, it's integrated into Autotask and then you're working on others. Is that right? Or
That's right. So we have ConnectWise, the adapters coming out within the next quarter. And that was one of our commitments with Pitch IT is that we fully support ConnectWise. And honestly, we get asked all the time, our referral partners, and then we have people that we meet at conferences, and they say, this is fantastic. You guys integrate into manage, right? And I'm like, well, not just yet. And so really, we're kind of running toward that release next quarter.
how have you we've done the integration into both, and so we'll talk about my stuff in the future, but how are you finding that as a developer, which great that you are, but how are you finding the cross-referencing all of the magic that you do into Autotask into ConnectWise? Is it similar process, or what's the
It's
API like to work
similar.
with?
I mean, there's some parts of Autotask and ConnectWise that mentally it's just different. The way that, for example, projects work inside of ConnectWise, it's just conceptually different than the way it works inside of Autotask. Um, but a lot of it really is identical. So in ConnectWise you call it a board, in Autotask you call it a queue. There's just a lot of things that are very similar. There's only so many ways to run a help desk, and both of the products have definitely have their market, but they're really just doing the same core thing. So priority is a priority.
Mhm. Yeah, there's some nuances here. We found that with obviously it's probably a good time to sort of introduce myself, but ZenContract is a contract automation platform for MSPs. It drives really, really significant operational efficiency in all of the administration that goes, in the non-tech side of the business, if you like, and it's right from the process of templatizing proposals and contracts, managing contracts for when they come up for renewal, making sure all of your clients are running on the master services agreement framework, and it's all very well having an amazing MSA template, but if it's actually not in the hands of someone and got the signatures and then stored and is
Yeah.
referenceable in a particular place, that's pretty important. That's where actually a lot of the reduction in your risk comes from, is making sure everyone's running on the correct version of the paper. And it's God help you if you want to update that and send it out via email and store it.
What
There's
did
a
you
full-time
find
job
was
for someone.
different when you guys were developing between Autotask and Manage, whether it's the back end tech or just the mind, like how people mentally use the two products? What did you find was different?
Yeah, how they use it is actually relatively similar, but is the philosophy around is there an opportunity with a quote on it, or is the quote part of the opportunity? That's one thing. Um, Having open-ended contracts in the world of ConnectWise, which is administratively amazing because you can
Hmm.
just set one out to the end of 2099, but then you're missing out on all of the opportunity to actually have a endpoint of that contract so that you've got the ability to be able to reprice, offer new products, cross-sell, upsell, look at all the opportunities across there. So that was a couple of fundamental differences that we've
I heard
the integrations.
somewhere. I hate to cut you up, but just related to that was that ConnectWise was written by a finance guy that does help desk work, and that Autotask was written by a help desk guy that, and then now supports finance work. Like, I have heard that ConnectWise was really written at its core around a strong financial model first, and then the help desk second. Whereas Autotask has focused on the help desk, and the financial aspect of it is where it lags a little bit. And I don't know how true that is. I just heard that was the different mindsets of like
Yeah.
where the strengths of the two products are.
Having been in the industry, so our MSP was all Autotask, right? And just for context of people listening to this, 50 person business doing north of 12 million, and it was making good money by the time we sold it. But we started from scratch with just me, and then added people, and like the journey for many people, didn't make much money in the first couple of years, and then just started to grow and use that and reinvest and add. And in US dollars, that's 8, 9, 10 million, something like that. But we certainly found the use of Autotask was more help desk, and that was the center of everything, was the service desk, which fantastic for your product to make that really efficient. And we actually built all of our reputation and all of our product offerings and everything around that. We had a mantra of making sure that we answered the phone within 10 seconds, and it was direct to a tech, and that we would, try and solve all of those problems of, more than 80% with the first interaction. So it was very service desk centric. And then off the back of that, obviously having high service levels, we would get more work and more projects and but if that core thing wasn't there, then the whole model would fall down. And we now I'm interacting, we've got hundreds of MSPs, both of both flavors, if you like, Autotask and ConnectWise. They do come at it from a slightly different angle, and I think why Halo is having such a big influx into the market and doing so successfully well is that they're taking the best aspects of both and have just rewritten a newer model, right? There's a lot of the Autotask and ConnectWise manage, the PSA. That each of those, Kaseya's got 40 different labels, and ConnectWise has got 40 different labels. But we're just talking about the PSAs here. Albeit that they're getting it continually advanced, the core of them was written some time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's where Halo's taking a bit of a fresh approach and got a few easier APIs and this and that. I don't know that product very well yet, but we're certainly seeing it.
Are you supporting Halo right now?
We are not. We're in the beginning process of integrating with them, and we're looking to have that done by Christmas. Each interaction is expensive to build. You know that, Dustin, right? So.
Oh, I know. People are like, well, just kick out an adapter. I'm like, it's not that simple. Each one, there's a little bit enough of a difference that it causes pain. Are you seeing some of y'all's ConnectWise managed customers shifting to Halo, or where do you see some of that move coming from?
It's a combination of both, actually. I think they're eating into their market share. And just to put it in context, their market share is still 4%, 3%, something like that. Yeah. It's not, it's not humongous, but it seems to be accelerating. And I think they're attracting customers from both. So, it's not like yay for Autotask or boo for ConnectWise or vice versa. It's just another player in the market that seems to be getting a reasonably good cult following. Part of that is because they're not owned. There's an independent owner guy out of the UK that's written a love letter to the world saying, I'll never sell this thing. I'm always going to keep it to myself. Mm-hmm. But they are, one of our customers is actually, when I had my MSP, just before Datto went public, there was a process that a bank will survey 50 or 100 of their worldwide customers as to what it's like to do business with them, right? I did that process when we were with Autotask and Datto, and one of our customers was telling us that they're just going through that process at the moment with Halo. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to try and list on the London Stock Exchange.
Wow, that'd be interesting.
Well, they're they're getting pretty big, like, and they're growing. I mean, I'm a massive Formula One fan, and I follow McLaren, and Halo PSA is on their car. Like
Well,
it's
I think
there.
the shock to the system for the customers at Halo, I'm not, from what I've heard, Halo is a fantastic product. We have seen a couple of customers shift over to it. I kind of thought it would be more. I mean, like what happens is we just came out of beta last year, so I can't say I've got years of experience here, but every 2 months we'll have a customer says, "Hey, look, we're either looking at or we're going to be shifting to Halo." So it's definitely a thing. It's happening. Um, I think what will be interesting, and this is not the Halo podcast, but if they do list themselves, they become accountable to the shareholders. That always changes the game. That's the definition of a publicly held company, is that it has to serve the best interest of the public that owns it. And so it would be interesting to seeing how things change if they do list themselves.
Yeah, but what it does give them the ability to do is grow significantly with scale and at pace, right? So gives them the opportunity to do that. But yeah, I mean, look, the back to our products rather than talking about Halo all the time. Is so yeah, Giant Rocketship integrates with Autotask and revolutionizes and makes a significant operational efficiency for the service desk, and obviously frees up some technicians to be able to then start doing project work. There must be a flow on from your product.
There is. In fact, we have a couple of the testimonials, is the word I was looking for, are really interesting. We had one customer who did a layoff round, um, and I was talking to them on the phone, and they had done the layoff round just as they were onboarding with us, because they were really looking, hey, how can we pinch pennies? How can we become more efficient? But then they brought on a bunch of customers within 2 to 3 months. Like all of a sudden, like they just hit this flow and they started growing, and they said we never rehired. Like we never hired those engineers back.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
yeah, and
So
so
that's
they had the capacity that going forward, they had capacity that they just didn't have before with more staff.
yeah, probably a combination of some capacity that was being eaten up by this moving of to constant moving of tickets and not
Well,
being done in an efficient way.
yeah,
But then also um, there's a concept called superfluous effort that can come out of a team of people that are really humming. And if that the typical employee wants to get to work at 8 and leave at 5 and have their full hour for lunch, and there's that type of thing, there's that type of employee. But when you get a group of people that are operating together, and you get this quite often in sports where they're really vibing off each other and syncing off each other, there's this extra effort that comes out, and people actually do things a bit faster and whatever, and they're interacting with each other seamlessly. The concept of flow comes into it, and to me it sounds like your tool could really accelerate that.
it accelerates us. The other thing is, yeah, we I mean, there definitely is some cost savings. We say we eliminate dead time. Dead time is like when a ticket is waiting to be dispatched, even if it's tier one and they can't solve it, they need to bump to tier two. That dead time of waiting for a manager to review it, assign it, that goes away. But really, that's not incremental. That's not huge. What really makes the big difference is Rocketship doesn't just see who's available; it sees who's best for that ticket. And
Right.
so you have one technician that might, on average, take 7 minutes to resolve a ticket, and another one that takes, on average, 4 minutes to resolve the same ticket. Who would you give it to? You'd
Yeah.
give it to the second technician. So Rocketship's going to give it to the second technician, and then that other technician is going to work on something they're better at. And so not only do you get rid of that dead time, some of that operational inefficiency, you get rid of just a lot of the, like the 20% to 30% inefficiency from technicians working the wrong ticket.
And so, how does it learn that information? How does it learn? I mean, obviously, so it'll pull the data from the PSA, because it knows when the ticket was assigned and then closed and how long. But the skill set in there, is there ones that are pre-populated that are really good at Office 365, and other ones that
So
are really good security engineers? How does that matrix go?
it's funny. There's AI sprinkled throughout the product. We've always had it. The one area that we haven't grown it, but we actually reduced it somewhat, was in the ticket assignment. It's still there. It's used to tag and categorize and predict. But we used to much more heavily rely on AI modeling to figure out who the technician should be. The problem with that approach was that you couldn't always guess where the ticket was going to go. Doesn't mean that it was the wrong choice. Service managers hate not being able to predict the outcome of something.
Right.
And so what we did is we started moving more to a rules-based engine for dictating where tickets go. And that allows the service manager, the owner, the dispatcher to really understand, hey, look, if I had had time, if I had infinite time, I would do X. And look, Rocketship is also doing X. And we found predictability actually outweighs the 5% improvement in the AI making like radical decisions. And so what happens is when you onboard, you kickstart Rocketship with some basic, it's going to ask you a couple of things, and then it's going to set up some basic policies. And then as you come up with new policies, for example, um, hey, the bulk of our tickets go through tier one, but if it's a Linux or a Meraki ticket, it goes to Bob, right? And then going forward, Rocketship knows that in general, Bob should be getting those tickets. And if he's not available, then it might go to a different tier. And that's how you configure it. But out of the box, it's going to do the best it can using the existing rules you have in your help desk.
Cool. And how if someone, one of these MSPs is listening to this, I know I sit on a board of 4 MSPs, so you're going to be getting some New Zealand customers more than likely anyway. But how do they go about getting a hold of you? It's giantrocketship.com.
Yep. So I always kind of thought our company name was a little bit funny. Obviously, I just jammed the two words together. But also, the domain name was so easy. It's giantrocketship.com. That's one of the reasons I went with it. So you can contact me at dustin@giantrocketship.com. We have a huge scheduled demo button at the top right of the website. And they were also obviously all on social media. We have webcasts that we do to help you fine tune your PSA. We're all over the place, but the website definitely the easiest place to reach me.
Great. And how does pricing work? I know that'll be more than likely on the website, or do they contact you for pricing? Or
Yeah, it's on the website. I don't believe in hiding pricing, so it's all fully published on the website. We have 3 separate tiers for how advanced, because on the bottom tier you can't issue 5,000 webhooks to us. Per second, right? So we're gonna put you in a different tier, but it's tiered out. It starts at $30 per user, and it goes up to $50 per user for the enterprise plan. And so the pricing model is very easy to understand.
okay, very good. And so for to talk about ZenContract for a second before we close this out, but I've found the session talking with you and Giant Rocketship and the things that, because I still own an MSP and sit on the boards of some others. I think that the ROI on your product would be incredibly easy to see and quite fast. And on the flip side, and not that ours is hard by any means, but just different avenue, because you're looking at reduction of risk, making sure everyone's
Yep.
operating on the same master services agreement. The operational efficiency that we get in the non-tech side of the business is significant. We in our MSP we're spending 55 hours per month managing contracts, just actually as easy as updating a Word document, saving as a PDF, attaching it to an email, sending it out and getting it digitally signed, then detaching it and signing it. All that's those activities, those manual processes that you would love to cut out. We were spending 55 hours a month on that, and once we wrote this tool and embedded it into the business, that went down to 2 hours. So you're saving a quarter of a person, but more importantly is your accuracy goes right up towards 100%. So the contract's always there, it's always referenceable. No longer is it on some guy called Bob's desk with one paw print on it and a coffee stain and one signature, and it's inaccurate. It's now accurate, stored in the right place, it's referenceable. But you get this beauty of a workflow that goes right from the signatures, because as soon as you get the external and then maybe you have a counter signature, as soon as you get those signatures, it will build the contract into the PSA automatically, win the opportunity, retire the old contract if it's a renewal, build the new contract. It will understand the difference between one-time services and one-time charges and ongoing monthly charges. It then understands the start and the end date of the contract, so it can manage all of the renewals and remind you of the renewals and remind your customer of the renewals that are coming up. and it stores it all in the right places and makes sure that it's referenceable. And so combination of all of that operational efficiency as well as the accuracy and the total mitigation of risk, it really puts your MSP in a position to be able to scale. And that's what we're seeing with our MSPs, and they're in North America, they're Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Ireland, all around the world, is that once they adopt this framework, it's a real accelerator to them bringing on board new customers and scaling their business up, but without having to scale headcount. So, in that way, our products are aligned. They're significant efficiency plays, but also I think the positive benefit of that efficiency is you're getting really accurate. And so the end customer experience for the MSPs that are using both our products, that really, which is ultimately the thing that defines you, is how good is your user and end customer experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is massively improved.
Well, Greg, I do have a question for you. Just kind of backing up. Do we have a couple more minutes?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, so you're still running an MSP. You sit on the board of several other MSPs, and you're doing this. How do you juggle that? Like, how do you find the time to do all those things?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, if you say those statements and you think that I'm doing them all full time, then obviously you're doing a really shit job at all of those things. So the time management comes that I own a portion of an MSP, so 40% of one that's in Australia is run full time by someone else. So I just sit on that board. That constitutes of being on the end of a phone when needed and a 1 hour board meeting per month, right?
Okay.
And those other boards are similar. So I'm attending board meetings. I'm providing advice at the end of the phone. I'm helping them reshape their business model, going from predominantly an education base to more of a commercial base, and largely it's I'm probably putting in 10 hours a month or something like that into those other ventures. This is the full-time gig, right? So because our client base is mainly in North America and our time zones are out of whack, sometimes that's getting up at 4 a.m. to do sales calls. Sometimes it's staying late at night because we're talking to the UK. I still managed to squeeze some golf in though, Dustin. So there's time. There's
What is
definitely time.
funny, the sales calls. So we we're pretty fresh on the scene, but we definitely are growing quickly, and we do have customers in Europe and UK, and just having to be up at a certain time to make those calls. And the worst feeling in the world for anybody else that does sales calls out of your continent, out of your hemisphere, is when you realize that you waited a couple of minutes too late. Now, it's like 11 o'clock your time, but they all went home. You're like, I have to wait till tomorrow to make these phone calls. Do you
Yeah.
guys do the bulk of your business? Is it US, Europe? Where's the bulk of
Is
your
it
customer base?
so 25% is Australia, New Zealand, 25% is UK and Ireland, and 50% is North America.
Okay, that's a pretty good split. I mean, that's a nice safe split for you guys.
Well, it's the only reason is 25% in Australia and New Zealand is because of locality, and
Mhm.
and I've been in the MSP circuit doing speaking gigs and stuff like that, much the same as yourself in your early part of your career. Rob Ray from Dado used to fly me around. We got on well, and I was put on stage in various things, and at one of the Dado conferences got to be the main headline interviewee for one of the sharks off Shark Tank, and that type of thing. And so you build a little bit of a profile. So once you get the marketing out there into Australia, New Zealand, then people are interested, and some of those conversations are quick. Whereas the ones in the US is beating the streets, attending the shows, spending the money, and building up I guess the street cred, because there is a little bit of an you selling outside of your geography. You've got to build credibility first, and luckily now there's hundreds of MSPs in North America that are using the product and loving the product, and so we've got references, and that helps cut through, doesn't it? So but yeah, sales calls, I mean, time zones are time zones.
Mhm.
The North America is actually great for us. It's not too bad, but the UK is a complete 12-hour offset. When we're at work, they're not, and when they're at work, we're not. So that's the harder one. With North America, there's quite a lot of crossover. We're just in the future. When you're on Thursday, we're on Friday. That's all. Be good if we could give you the lotto numbers, but we can't.
Well, maybe if you ever hear of them, just send me a text. I can go buy something real quick.
Exactly. Good.
Well,
Hey,
great.
well,
Thanks for having
thanks.
me on.
Yeah, thanks for so much for spending the time. And just to round this out, you can get Dustin at giantrocketship.com. And for me, it's ZenContract.com. That's with a Z or Z, depending on who's listening. And just Greg at ZenContract.com. So if you want to operationally make efficient your service desk and just turbocharge it so it's operating at a real high level, it's Giant Rocketship. And if you want to cut all the risk out of your business and get your contracts right, and maybe you don't have an MSA and you want one, you want to get operationally efficient at everything to do with managing contracts from end to end, then it's ZenContract.com. Thanks very much, Dustin.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
All right.